Hey, Gary's Gulch. Welcome back. This is a two-part podcast talking about two totally different topics. One, current events, and then one is a promo of some work that I'm doing on a course with my good friend and my loan originator, amazing lender, Aaron Chapman. I'm going to go spend a week with him. You'll hear more about that. We're going to do some social media stuff while we're out there. We're going to build some cabins. We're getting ready for a great experiential event that I have promoted on previous episodes, and certainly we'll do more with and without Aaron as we prepare for and talk about exactly what it's going to be. Okay, before that though, my love and hate affair with AI and the ninjas, or what I'm calling individuals who take a little bit of a surface level look at a topic and AI and then throw it to the humans for us to banter back from the perspective of it being free, like going after AI, right? You can ask AI whatever you want. All you've lost is your time and maybe some electrons and maybe an electric bill, but it doesn't cost you anything. And so you can ask it all kinds of layers of depth. And in fact, AI, as ChatGPT, will say, I can do this for you too. And it'll ask you to go a couple layers deeper. And you get trained to ask and tell it specifically what to list. Okay, who else out there has received annoying emails from individuals in the business world and from either clients, but it doesn't have to be clients? I'll get emails that say, can you explain for me this topic? Please list in your response, orient your response by blah, 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 and list in there these specific details, right? And so it's like they're writing something for ChatGPT. Okay, first of all, it's very impersonal. It comes off as in I'm a tool that they get to use. It's just not ideal. So that's one that is super annoying, is when somebody, because they're used to talking to a computer this way, they go talk to humans this way. It's not a very endearing quality, and it results in feeling like you're just an implement that they're going to throw in the trash can when they've got what they want. It doesn't make you work pretty hard for them, is what I would say. So just keep that in mind when you got to figure out how to turn off AI and turn on discussions with the humans. Fascinating conversation today, by the way, at Paradigm Life when we were doing our team get together about a podcast that Patrick had introduced us all to. And the big takeaway was like there are a lot of advantages of AI. It's accelerating faster than anybody thought it would, and all these things, right? And there certainly are plenty of people that think we're all going to go hungry and we're going to have no purpose in life. That's what they thought about the saber-toothed tigers getting the weird two-legged man. It's also what we thought when we were using whale blubber to heat the homes. We were going to freeze to death. And then thankfully this thing called coal came around. And there's so much of that stuff we don't even know what to do with it today. But it was going to run out, sure as could be, until oil came around. And then oil, wow, that was so much heating value, so much compact energy that we could do amazing things now. We could light the world with it. But certainly it was going to run out. And by the way, a spoiler alert on that one, you should read a few articles about us going back now under the drill baby drill and just turning on old wells around America. The pools are full again. And where did that come from? I don't think there were any more dinosaurs that happened to die. Of course, the scientists, the anti-Christian scientists, have convinced themselves that it's because the oil that was in these other cracks, over time, the pressure will force it down into these old pools. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe our amazing, abundant, and loving God just fills them back up for us in a very non-scientific way. And comment from this nuclear engineering masters guy who's shooting the podcast here. I don't think that we have a creator who wants us to live in scarcity. So the oil was going to run out, though, and then nuclear power showed up, and then we figured out how to use wind and solar, and geothermal, hydroelectric. I don't think this is all going to happen where we run out of power and freeze to death. But we also thought that we may burn up at a few periods during world evolution. But certainly, those darn icebergs are going to melt and they're going to drown all of us. Until we look at sea levels and realize that they haven't changed more than an inch or so in more than 100 years. So why am I going through this rant? AI is just the next thing that is going to destroy all of us. We're going to be like the Jetsons, except we won't have any reason to go to work. I don't think that's going to be the case, and here's why. And this kind of goes back to that podcast. Two massive takeaways. Number one, they don't build rapport between humans. That's going to require a human. And the primary impact of sales or getting somebody, influencing somebody to do what they should wants to do or do want to do but can't do it yet. A coach's role with an individual, or the role of sales, we're getting them to recognize that maybe this is something they want to take a look at and should be doing. That's not going to be done easily with AI. AI approaches you with lots of data and an intellectual case. It makes the case intellectually. Well, humans are animals, very emotional animals, and we take action based on our emotions. We may convince ourselves, we make the case and convince ourselves it's okay to go buy that incredibly awesome black ZR1 Corvette, but we're going to tell ourselves intellectually the old one's going to need new tires soon. And it's a little, I don't know, it doesn't corner as well as this new one. And this is for safety for my kids. We will convince ourselves with intellect or with making an intellectual case for what we have already decided on emotionally. And the computers are not going to do a good job of selling somebody's emotions. So that's one, human interaction and appealing to the emotional side. And then the second big thing is having the ability to do those out-of-box decisions, the ability to come up with a solution to a world problem that no computer would logically have arrived at. It is a creative way to realize, wow, I saw somebody once do this with old cars, and I realize it's a good solution for what we're trying to do to grow potatoes better. Those two things are probably not going to come together from an intellectual approach looking back throughout history by a computer. So we're not going to get it replaced. They're not going to take us all over and fake us out. You can go look at Instagram and TikTok, and you can tell pretty quickly when the airplane crashing or the big ship that's coming up on land, you can pretty quickly figure out that's not real. I saw a funny one last night with President Trump making the winning shot for the men's Olympic hockey team. It was less than a second before I realized that was not actually real, right? It's a silly one. But we are animals who have this gut instinct, intuition that has kept us alive for centuries. And it will keep us alive going forward with AI. The thing that AI will do for us is it will bring more data, and it would allow us to complete tasks that were data and engineer and energy and time intensive, that were just the crunching things. The data crunching, time crunching, those things were tough. And AI will help tremendously there. It will improve America. It will improve the world. It will improve our lives. It will not replace us and make us useless. And we're not going to run out of energy. So that energy thing was a little bit of a rant that was really just to get to AI. And so second story from a client, and this was this week, asked me about ownership of their life insurance policies. I've had the policies a few years, and he said, hey, this was a mistake. We need to change this. I own my policy and my spouse owns their policy. That is going to be a problem with estate taxes, death taxes. We should have been owning each other's policies. And I thought, my gosh, that's never happened to me. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why would this have come up? The client was adamant and a very smart person. And so I tried to dig into it deeper. And it wasn't until I went to AI that I realized what I think was happening. They shared with me that this had come up in a key person policy where you have the business kind of owning policies on individuals or employees. And in that scenario, yes, there is a big concern about the tax impact or the taxation of the policies. But that is unrelated to spouses and marriage, because there's two really important things here. There's something called an unlimited marital gifting allowance, which means that whatever is in your half of the estate, when you die, your spouse gets all of that, no tax. And then there's also something called portability of our personal exemption. So each of us today, approximately $13 million, so 26 for a couple, and it's going up pretty quickly annually for inflation. Whatever your spouse hasn't used ports over to you, rolls over to you. And here's the funny thing. When I put the question into ChatGPT, it said exactly what my client had said. That there's an incident of ownership and it could result in the death benefit, not income tax wise, But estate tax, if you have too large of an estate when you die, it could be taxed. It said that. Yeah, if you own it, it will be incident of ownership, and that could cause it to be taxed in your estate. But here's the thing. Paul Harvey used to say, he had an ABC television series that went from like 1976 to, I'm not actually sure when it ended, like 2010 or something. But Paul Harvey would say, and that's the rest of the story. And there would be this, he would talk about the initial kind of surface level topic that everybody had heard of. But most of us had not, until Paul Harvey researched it and talked about it, didn't know the zingers, the specific things that actually mattered. For example, I don't know, I'm going to make this story totally up. A mother risked her life to walk out into oncoming high-speed traffic and stood there for 30 seconds. The traffic could have easily killed her. Okay, so that's part of the story. The whole story is, and if you asked AI, I'm sure, should I walk out into traffic for 30 seconds when they're coming by at X 60 miles an hour? I'm sure it would say, no, that's not safe. Many people don't survive, blah, blah, blah. It comes up with all this history stuff. But what if the rest of the story from Paul Harvey was that the closest car was approximately a minute away, and she was running out into traffic because her baby had tripped and fallen and was beside itself and wasn't able to figure out how to get up and wasn't listening to her because it was wailing and crying, and she was the only thing that was going to save it, and yet she had twice as much time as she needed. Now AI, ChatGPT, is it a good idea? Of course. Now it's a perfect idea, right? So the other half of the story never comes when you don't have the experience, the expertise, the time in the saddle, so to speak, to know what questions to actually ask. And so this kind of came into play when I was interacting with my client. Because yes, everything he learned and said to me was true. If he dies as owner of his policy, it would become part of his estate, at least briefly, before it went to the beneficiary. True, 100% true. That does not affect income taxes, but this whole, like, how big is your estate so that the federal government can take 40% of the stuff that's over that massive limit we have nowadays. Most of us don't have to worry about this. But if you have 10, 15, $20 million, you should probably need to be thinking about this. Okay, so true. If you own the policy, it's in your estate for a brief period of time, and that's enough for it to be taxed. But here's the thing. And then if you say, if my spouse is the owner, will that be a problem? No, it will not be in your estate. AI says, you're good to go, great move. Okay, but here's the problem. If you own hers and she dies, or vice versa, it could be the he, but you own your spouse's and your spouse dies, that's in your estate and it's now taxable. So yes, you got rid of the problem with your own policy, but you took on one with your spouse. So those are not the solutions, and it's already been solved by Congress with the portability and the lifetime gift exclusions. And further, the real solution here is to have an irrevocable trust own lots of your assets like real estate and businesses and things, so that even if the life insurance is still in your estate, what is still in your world, in your estate, is nowhere near the limits that have been set by the government. So you don't really have to worry about it. But you can have the trust, an irrevocable trust, be owner and beneficiary, and you don't have to worry about it there either. My whole point was not to give a big lesson on estate taxes, but if you did have questions there or you think it's applicable to your world, please do reach out. I'd be happy to go through it. I've done lots of training and education and certifications on these topics. My whole point in the big picture takeaway is that AI will do a good job of doing the kind of mundane, routine stuff. To quote the Four Seasons, which Paradigm Life has also adopted as one of our goals, one of our visions, the Four Seasons motto is operationalize the mundane to humanize the exceptional. Have the computer, even the very intellectual, fast learning, efficient computer that on some level, on the intellectual level, thinks like humans but faster, have it do the mundane things so that we can humanize the exceptional things. Figuring out that whiteout keeps you from having to retype every letter. Figuring out that this tape, this glue that was attempted to be used for one thing but wasn't very good at it could be put on the back of pieces of paper, and 3M and sticky notes were created. Figuring out that things that we tested for outer space work very well in cooking pans and in operation of cars and other vehicles. Figuring out that a medicine from one thing is actually much better and applicable in another arena. Those things often require the human to think about something that you just don't connect those dots with intellect. You use creativity and you use seemingly unimportant past experiences that humans are innately good at connecting together to solve the problem. It is why we are the world's primal being. It is why we are the world's biggest predator, because we can figure out how to overcome almost any obstacle, no matter how much physically bigger than us they are. I hope that was helpful, just my take on AI and some recent experiences. Now I'm going to give you a quick promo intro to a conversation about infinite banking and real estate, essentially just why you would do it and big picture, what is it? I hope you enjoy, and I will see you back here on the next episode of Gary's Gulch. The 2010 Great Recession. I'm staring at my brokerage statement. Half of my family's wealth gone. I did everything right. Diversified, dollar cost averaged, trusted the experts. And in a matter of weeks, the market erased 2 decades of discipline. I'm Gary Pinkerton. I spent 30 years as a nuclear submarine officer, including commanding the fast attack submarine USS Tucson. I've managed billion-dollar assets. I thought I understood risk. I didn't understand anything. And that recognition started a 5-year obsession. How do wealthy families, the ones that stay wealthy for generations, how do they build differently? The answer was hiding in plain sight. And it's going to sound strange at first. Whole life insurance. Whole life insurance. I know, I can hear you. Whole life is a scam. Whole life is a terrible investment. Buy term insurance and invest the difference in the markets. I said the same things for years. Here's what I missed. Whole life is a bad investment because it's not an investment at all. It's a savings vehicle, a place to store capital that beats a savings account, grows tax-free, and lets you access it on your terms. Comparing whole life to the stock market is like comparing a submarine to a fighter jet. Different purposes entirely. Open your workbook to the policy structure diagram. Here's how it works, and this is important, so stay with me. A typical whole life policy is designed to maximize the agent's commission, big death benefit, tiny cash value in the early years. And that's what gives whole life a bad name. A policy designed for infinite banking, opposite. We minimize death benefit, just enough to qualify under IRS rules. We maximize paid up additions. That's where all of your optional extra money goes. Results? Day one, you can access 80 to 90% of what you put in, not 10%, 80 to 90. And it grows at 2 to 3 times of what a savings account can do, tax-free and guaranteed. But here's where it gets powerful. Turn to the wealth cycle diagram in your workbook. Follow along. When you borrow against your policy, the insurance company lends you their money. Your cash value is collateral. It never leaves. So while your money is out working for you, buying real estate, funding a business, whatever, your money is still inside the policy, still growing. You deploy capital, your capital keeps compounding. You pay back the loan, your cash value is now higher than before when you started. Borrow again, buy another asset, repeat. One pool of money, infinite deployments. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. There's a case study in your workbook with Aaron's real numbers. He funded his policy with $90,000. Day one, available to borrow, $83,000. He took that $83,000, insurance company money, remember, and bought 3 rental properties with it. Those properties cash flow, and that cash flow plus some of his own capital, he put back in, paid back the policy loan in under 2 years. But here's the thing. While the loan was out, his cash kept growing. Loan paid off, cash value now higher than before. He borrows again, buys more properties, pays them down, repeats the process. To date, Aaron has borrowed over $1 million through the policy. The same $90,000 base, recycled over and over again. And he now has a $2.7 million death benefit protecting his family. That's not theory, that's his tax returns. Now the objections, let's handle them. Whole life is a scam, usually said by someone selling either term insurance or investment products. Ask yourself, who profits if you believe whole life is bad? Here's another one. The returns are too low. This isn't about returns. It's about building a foundation. You don't criticize your checking account for not beating the S&P. And I can do better in the markets. Maybe until October 2008 happens, or March of 2020 during COVID, or 2022, or perhaps 2026. My policy has never lost value. Not once. Not ever. In fact, the companies we work with are 200 years old and they haven't lost money for anybody in any of their whole life policies. When I discovered this strategy, I became a client first back in 2011, and I experienced it personally for a few years before I ever helped anyone else employ it. That's how I know it works. In your workbook, there's an infinite banking readiness assessment. Complete it before moving on. It will tell you if this strategy fits your situation. Aaron's up next. He's going to show you where the cash flow comes from. Investment real estate funded by DSCR loans. No income verification, no limits.